Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar. Thank you for coming. We've got a great lineup here today. My goal is to get you out of here within 15 minutes since this is a micro webinar, and it's more along the lines of, if you've ever heard of the term lightning round, and we're just going to try and move as fast as we can through this. My name is Glenn Hughes. I'm going to be your master of ceremonies, if you want to call it that. The first speaker we have today is Tom, who is from Votenet. Tom is an industry expert with regards to labor union voting. He has run over 100 elections and has a wealth of knowledge. And just to keep things moving along, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Tom.
Hi, today we're going to go over secret balloting for labor unions. We're going to compare and contrast mail-in balloting versus online ballots. My name is Tom. I work for the Union Balloting Division here at Votenet. My contact information is below, so feel free to reach out anytime you have any questions. So mail-in balloting, is it really secret? Most of us have used mail-in ballots in the past, or we've at least tabulated them before, so it's for this. It's definitely cost and time effective for small labor unions. Department of Labor is very comfortable with the process since they outlined it in the last quarter century. And the process can be secret since mail has been around for a long time, and secret ballots have only been a requirement of the last 60 to 70 years. They have adapted mail for secret ballots, and they can be secret because the entire process is what makes these ballots secret. I mean, yes, your ballot does travel in an envelope that is sealed with your name on it. So, but you know, we expect and rely on the tabulation observers to make sure that it is secret. But it does rely heavily on many people who must follow meticulous processes to make sure and ensure that your ballot is indeed secret. And there's always temptation for malicious agents to come in and maybe peek at the ballot that was in there without a second envelope. So there are a couple pitfalls. Definitely, it's susceptible to human error, either on the part of the voter who might have unknowingly signed his ballot in the process, or it could have been mishandled by the mailman, or possibly internally within the union prior to tabulation. So I've seen many ballots out there that have barcodes, numbers, or some sort of identifiers on the ballot. And at the end of the day, is that really truly secret? One could always go back and match the barcode to somebody's identifier or name. And then on the other hand, we have online balloting, which was designed with accuracy and secrecy in mind. And it's really as easy as checking your email. Voters are provided with some sort of unique access codes. They can be mailed or emailed to them, or provided in a third secure manner. And there are a couple of principles that online balloting is developed around. The first two, integrity and transparency, ensure that there's a complete audit trail and everything is documented. And then you have structure, reliability, and replicability, which ensures that votes always are run the same and that the algorithms only calculate accurately and effectively. We always keep logs, meticulous logs of every action that is done by our administrators, and any foul play is extremely obvious. So how do we really maintain secrecy in online balloting? Well, the real key is to secret ballots is breaking that connection forever. And so once the ballots are tabulated on our end, they are completely separate from anybody's ID, and there's never a trail to go back.
Thank you, Tom. That was great information. I'm sure everybody here appreciates, and especially the viewers, appreciate the information that you put together. It certainly was actionable. I especially enjoyed your last slide, which uncoupled the vote from the voter. Moving right along, I want to introduce you to our next speaker, who is one of the country's leading experts on Get Out the Vote. He is finishing up his PhD in behavioral psychology with a minor on political science. And with that, it's my distinct privilege and honor to introduce Charles Dahan.
Hi everyone, my name is Charles Dahan. I am the research director at Votenet, as well as a PhD candidate in the political science department and studying behavioral psychology at the University of Florida. My research interests are get out the vote efforts and strengthening associations, voluntary associations, as well as unions. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you today about methods for increasing voter turnout, leveraging your election to strengthen your organization, and then identifying some of the structural challenges to turnout and ways in which we, using behavioral techniques and behavioral experiments here at Votenet, have been able to create proof points to be able to overcome some of those challenges. What we're going to do today is first define and quantify one of the terms that's thrown around most often for unions, associations, and organizations, member engagement. We're going to define it and quantify it, and then talk a little bit about how it relates to your election and any Get Out the Vote efforts. Second, I'm going to identify structural challenges to these Get Out the Vote campaigns, and we'll be going over these in much greater detail with all of our statistical analysis later this month at the very end of August. And then third, we're going to talk about building organizational success with your election. First, though, I'd like to talk about how you should think about your election. Most folks think about the election as an obligation. You have lots of responsibilities in your position. Running an election is one of those. And it's an obligation that has to be overcome, or especially if you're running more than one election per year. But you should change your mindset, because an election is an opportunity to, one, have a referendum on the strength of your union, particularly by being able to measure the number of people that believe it's worth it to actually cast a ballot and take the time out of their day. And then secondly, it's an opportunity to leverage the election to find who are the high involvement members and then solicit them to engage in other activities. So how should we actually think about turnout? Well, turnout is an opportunity to measure how many people within the organization care enough to cast a ballot. How many people care enough to cast a ballot? So turnout is not simply a form of member engagement, right? But it's also a form of being able to strengthen the organization through engagement. It's not simply a good by itself. So merely increasing voter turnout on the surface is very difficult to define how it's actually a good all by itself. So if you increase turnout from 10 to 15%, you've increased your turnout by 50%. But what does it actually mean for the organization, and how does it strengthen the organization over time? So we'll talk about that in a moment. Finally, more engaged groups have greater turnout, and greater turnout also increases member engagement. So it's bidirectional, right? If your organization is very strong and your members are very engaged, you're going to see greater turnout, and soliciting greater turnout over time is going to increase engagement within the organization. So turnout is a really great opportunity. But I've used the term engagement a lot. And what does it actually mean, and what does it matter? Engagement is defined here as any behavioral commitment to the organization. Any behavioral commitment an individual undertakes to the organization. So this can be a donation, this can be renewing a membership, this can be participating in a conference or in a rally, this can be running for office, or this could be voting. So voting is a very low-cost form of member engagement. It's a commitment by members that they're demonstrating that they believe that the group is important. And really, really significantly, voting is a very easy way to increase or offer members an opportunity to participate with the organization and get their foot in the door. What we know, and this is a really important point, what we know is that engagement is addictive. So engagement is addictive, meaning that if an individual engages on a very small task, like voting, They're going to be more likely to engage first in that task in the future. So voting, we know, is addictive. So people that vote in 1 year are more likely to vote in the second year. They're even more likely to vote in the third year if they voted in year 1 and 2. But moreover, they're more likely to participate in other activities, donations, membership renewal, conferences, and other forms of participation if they get their foot in the door by increasing voter turnout. So, voter turnout and get out the vote efforts are a great way to strengthen the organization, increase member engagement over time, and really increase participation in lots of other activities. So with that example of going from 10% to 15%, if your organization or union has 10,000 members, you've just gotten 500 more members involved and more likely to participate in other activities, which any marketing campaign would be thrilled to be able to have. And you have to engage in this activity anyway. What are the structural challenges that might limit the success of a get out the vote effort? So what about your union, organization, or association might limit success? Well, first, we've analyzed over 10,000 elections. Our statistics team from George Washington University and Johns Hopkins has analyzed, in conjunction with myself, has analyzed over 10,000 elections. We find that as the size of the organization or union or association increases, voter turnout decreases. People feel less close to the institution, and therefore participation decreases. Second, the group structure and the type might increase or decrease participation. So if a group or a ballot or a particular election is a very high salience or very high information for individuals, they will be more likely to cast a ballot. If it's for the president of the organization, it's going to get a higher turnout than if it's for lower level offices. Third, the voting period itself, the days in which you start and end the election, as well as the length, will affect turnout. And finally, office and candidate contrast. So if people can see a difference between those candidates, you're going to see different levels of turnout. We're going to go over this in great detail again at the end of the month. But these are a few of the solutions that we found today to be able to increase voter turnout. First, again, I really want to reinforce that you should change your mindset from an election being an obligation to an election being an opportunity. But if your election is an opportunity to increase engagement over time, if it's an opportunity for members to get their foot in the door, to participate in a very an activity they should participate in anyway, right? An event that you have to, by your bylaws, hold, they're going to be more likely to increase engagement across the board in other activities you might care about. So how do we do this how do we solve the problem of the size? Well, what we've done is break down organizations into smaller groups. And when an individual identifies with a smaller group, a subgroup of the large organization, they're more likely to cast a ballot. We refer to this as gamification. We've worked with the Society for Cable Television Engineers, SCTE, for a number of years. And we've seen that through gamification for this very large, tens of thousands of person organization, we've seen that gamification has been tremendously successful. If you look at the chart, the x-axis, the horizontal axis, is the day of the election. The y-axis is the number of voters per day. And the two giant spikes you see at the end are when we sent out emails identifying the turnout by subgroup, by region. And we got giant turnout increases. They went from anywhere from 5 to 10 participants per day, voters per day, to nearly 300 during the first event and nearly 220 during the second gamification email. We've done this over the course of a number of years, and SCT has gone from turnout at about 6 to 7% to 11% to this year had nearly 17% turnout. So we've had massive success. The second thing I'll talk about is nominee contrast, and we create really, really beautiful nominee contrast. This is not one of them. We weren't around in 1800, and this is a very simple and simplistic comparison between two candidates. You have just simply the pictures, and you have clear contrast between them. If you've ever gotten a voter guide from the League of Women Voters, they also have a clear two-column difference between the candidates. But what we've done is embedded video and audio and terrific graphics that create opportunities for folks and for candidates to get their message out, as well as create contrast between the two candidates. That's completely controlled by your institution. So whatever your bylaws allow for, you can allow for candidates to offer information, or you can offer that information perhaps through a questionnaire, through our nominee contrast. Because again, if you have vanilla versus vanilla running for office, even if I want to participate, I have no reason to. There's no utility for me to actually cast my ballot in that type of election. So you need to create contrast between them. The third thing that we do here is message testing. Message testing is an opportunity to take a small sample from your organization or your association or union. So let's say you have 50,000 members. You take 500 of them, randomize a few messages through an A/B test, and then see which of those messages really resonate with members. And we can look at that prior to the election with some sort of click-through rate, right, or folks visiting an informational website, and see what messages actually matter, and then create proof points to find the most successful messages that then can be blasted out to the entire organization. This is great because it maximizes return on investment. So rather than sending out a rather boring email that just says, hey, our election is open, something that's obligatory and doesn't really catch the eye of members, through message testing we can figure out which ones are going to maximize turnout. The great part about this too is that it allows for an opportunity for you to use that messaging in future efforts that may not be related to the election. Finally, one of the most recent innovations that we've come up with is a pre-registration site. You see here are a bunch of celebrities for an MTV campaign encouraging folks to vote. Very expensive campaign, run on many different channels. But in the actual political election, what was found is that asking folks to pre-register, to commit to vote prior to the election, is even more effective than all of these celebrities combined asking members to vote. And this is exactly what we did in a recent election with an 80,000 person alumni association with Howard University. Howard University had very low turnout. With their 80,000 member association, they had less than 800 voters in 2014. This was a real problem, so they came to us and asked, how can we increase voter turnout? So we created this very simple commit to vote site. Folks we first had message testing to see what would get people to click through and through this email blast and increase voter turnout. And then they would come off their email address, mobile phone, and first and last name, and opt in to receive email or text or both, text messages or both. They also could opt in to receive messages via Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. And they could opt in to receive messages independent from the election. So they may want to receive messages that are outside of the election period. So like for the Howard University golf tournament, for donation drives, for alumni reunions, any of those sorts of things, to be able to leverage the election and get the most value and the highest return on their investment for this sort of get out the vote effort. So was it successful? Again, in 2014 they had fewer than 800 voters, and just for the pre-registration campaign they had 2,100 folks that actually pre-registered and gave all of this information. 1,700 of those opted in to receive text messages, and nearly all of them opted in to receive emails. So did turnout increase? Well, the blue bar, this is for the first period of the election. Blue bar is the 2014 election, which again had very low voter turnout. And you see a massive spike when we have the pre-registration campaign in 2015, and a much more successful campaign. One of our clients told us that the behavioral campaign exceeded every goal imaginable, which I completely agree with. I've been satisfied with our work drawing upon my academic research in every single one of our Get Out the Vote efforts, and using different innovative techniques, whether it's the gamification, whether it's the nominee contrast site, or whether it's the pre-registration. We've been able to not only increase turnout, but strengthen organizations through increasing engagement. We really hope that you will contact us either through our website, through our phone at 202-207-0526, or contact Glenn Hughes, ghughes@votenet.com. And if you call, you can get in touch with me, and I would love to talk more about all of our Get Out the Vote products and all of our Get Out the Vote efforts here that are really draw upon academic research.